Hello, faithful listener. Here I am with the fourth show in this mega drop of episodes on the brand new feed for the 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump Administration series. This podcast is officially titled 1,461 Days of Ignoring with Josh Bloom because I was sick of seeing my face next to his name. I am writing to you now from the P, which you may think I am always writing to you from, and you wouldn't be wrong. I have not been to the Black Cow Coffee Company community table in some time because I am saving on the price of gas and coffee at the moment, but I will have to return there soon on behalf of the Josh Bloom podcast because it is such fertile ground for inspiration. In fact, episode 60 of the Josh Bloom podcast is out now and contains 1 hour of observation, obsessions, and oh my god, filled storytelling goodness. I suggest subscribing to my Substack to access the newsletter that accompanies episode 60, which contains additional content that I want you to have in order to fully immerse yourself in the listening experience. Please go to superjews.substack.com to do so. Now that I have mentioned this, I must now mention that you may not know what this is. When I say subscribe to my Substack, I am not thinking much about whether you know exactly what the hell that means. I know that a Substack is a newsletter that you receive in your email inbox, but yesterday I came to learn that I may be fooling myself on this matter when it comes to whether you know that. When I suggested to my friend who listens to this podcast and has heard me make this request so often, he responded that when he hears this, he says to himself, "Yeah, I don't do that." I take, "yeah, I don't do that" to mean I don't go to websites and subscribe to them. This was completely understandable after I thought about it from his point of view. I don't go to websites and subscribe to them either. I responded, realizing that I was coming off a bit irritated and condescending in tone, "Well, you know what an email newsletter is, right?" Thankfully, this friend has decades of experience with my tone. He let my voodoo child slight tantrum subside before listening to me explain what I am going to explain to you now, and him if he's listening and laughing at me. Substack is a platform by which writers can publish writing, which is then sent by the writer to the subscribers of the writer's account as a newsletter-style email directly to the subscriber's email address. That's about it. That was easy. Perhaps that might be more useful to you than me simply saying, "Subscribe to my Substack." Now that I have explained, please go and subscribe to my Substack. Don't forget, if you want to watch the daily posts that comprise this weekly podcast in real time, you can do so on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok if you're nasty, or at the recently mentioned Substack, where I also post them, but I do not email them to you as described above. Not everything on my Substack is emailed out, which is yet another reason to subscribe so that you can be notified when I post content that does not hit your email inbox. Go to superjews.com, that's superjews.com, to access links to all of my social media. I look forward to connecting with you. And now, let's get into 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump Administration, days 327 through 333. This week on the show, on day 327, I confess to some klutz-like behavior, or if I am being honest, actual klutz behavior that involves ketchup. Not unlike the unfortunate evening in NYC that I detail on episode number 60 of the Josh Bloom podcast, this day involves a series of difficult moments that took place one morning leading up to what a fastidious dude like me, who does not react well to life's little self-inflicted unforced errors, was not happy about. Stay tuned. On day 328, a commenter says to me, "Democrats won't be in officer for a long time. Get used to it." That's right. Freudian slip by this commenter who does not know who Freud is. I had some fun with the use of the word officer and how when I think of officers, I think of criminals, and when I think of criminals, well, you know. I do offer a slight apology to this commenter before it's all over. On day 329, I discuss the recent renaming of the Kennedy Center, or more accurately, the defiling of the Kennedy Center by placing the leader of the Trump administration's name in proximity to JFK's. My focus on this day is about the artists who have all canceled their appearances there, and how it is my belief that they have done so for the same reason why I have taken his name off of this podcast. It's just too gross to be so close. On day 330, I admit to enjoying watching the leader of the Trump administration melt down like the Wicked Witch of the West when he posts on his pretend Twitter about how the governor of Colorado is a scumbag and that he would like other elected officials in the state to rot in hell. I also admit that I have thrown a tantrum or three in my day, but I do not remember saying anything about anyone disintegrating with Satan. I guess that's just me. On day 331, I refer to Starbucks as burnt dessert, and with that, make sweeping judgments of those who walk out of this crumbling coffee culture establishment with what I claim is nothing having to do with coffee. Once I am done doing unto others what I would not want them to do unto me, I get real with the topic of the day, which is financial inequity and how it eats away at the harmony that I believe is at the core of the ideal human experience. Huge topic, huge coffee, huge caloric content. On day 332, I comment on the leader of the Trump administration's recent invasion of Venezuela to capture its leader and his fellow dictator in an effort to steal the country's oil, which he has done and appears to be personally profiting from at this time. But that's not what interests me. As a hobby observer of human behavior, I am more fascinated with the idea that the leader of the Trump administration is just licking his wounds over not being awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, which was awarded to the leader of the opposition coalition in Venezuela, who has not been allowed to assume power. Don't get lost in the sauce. This is only about Donald's boo-boos. Speaking of boo-boos, we wrap up the week on day 333 with a continuation of the previous day's ideas that remind me of Yogi Bear's cartoon sidekick. I take some pride in beating the Washington Post to the scoop that Venezuela was indeed about the Nobel Peace Prize. As it was revealed, the leader of the opposition coalition in Venezuela, which has not been allowed to assume power, also found herself feeling as if she was not allowed to keep her non-transferable Nobel Peace Prize. I hope to get the attention of the Nobel Committee myself by keeping my mouth shut for 20 minutes while you listen to this week's posts. As a talkative guy, I feel like this qualifies. I will be back shortly.
Day 327 of 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump Administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. Remember how the leader of the Trump administration throws ketchup against the wall when he's angry? The leader of the Trump administration and I aren't totally dissimilar when it comes to ketchup spillage, although mine was not spilled willingly, and I was not angry before or even after it happened. I am one of those people who does not throw condiments, be they ketchup, mayo, mustard, jams, or hot sauces, when I am angry. I try to connect with what I am feeling and why, instead of reaching for a bottle of Heinz to make messes for other people to clean up. I don't mind sharing my misfortune for your pleasure. Here's what happened. I was out the door at 7:30 a.m. to do laundry and realized it was 18 degrees outside, and the liquid detergent I store in the trunk of my car was probably frozen, but bonus, it wasn't. Maybe we were off to a smooth morning after all, although I do think that if I am going to get COVID, it is at that laundromat packed with people, hot water, and dirty clothing. I thought I had enough quarters, but I was exactly 1 quarter short and had to leave my laundry in the machine and go to the bank to get more cash. I got back, started the washer, and then first ran off to the Panera for a Sip Club coffee, and then next door to McDonald's for a buy one, get one free sausage McMuffin to shove in my face before the washer went buzz. Unfortunately, my tested method for carrying ketchup to my car in those little white paper ketchup carrying cups failed me today. One of them flew out of my hand, spilling all over the drop stop between the driver's side seat and the center console. Shout out to Drop Stop for stopping the drop, but instead of the ketchup going in my mouth, it had to go into one of the microfiber cloths that I also keep in the trunk next to the frozen detergent. I ate my McMuffins before they got cold, even though the ketchup ratio was completely thrown off, and rushed back to the laundromat where I hit the dryer with my freshly procured quarters, went home, folded my laundry, got ready, and started out the door again, thinking, great, now I can start my day. But as I pulled my key out of the deadbolt lock of my front door, the cylinder came out with it. I felt like I was in the Broadway show, The Play That Goes Wrong, which is exactly what it sounds like. I just finished ordering a new deadbolt from Home Depot, which I will pick up shortly. I'm happy that you got to hear this story of holiday cheer and condiment tossing condemnation. Please continue to ignore the Trump administration. Day 328 of 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. Ryan Michael 84 says, Democrats won't be in officer for a long time. Get used to it. Well, Ryan Michael 84, I would normally gloss over a comment such as this, but I can't help chuckle at your Freudian slip. Saying officer instead of office is quite telling. When I hear the word officer, I think of the law. And when I think of the law, I think of criminals. And when I think of criminals these days, well, I think you know who I'm thinking of. There is someone who is the subject of discussion, a leader of a certain administration, who is involved with a set of files that you may have been hearing about. And these files contain documents, photographs, and conversations that seem to mention people and persons who break our social norms, our concepts of morality, and to your Freudian point, our laws, in ways that are simply unacceptable and require accountability and consequences. If I were to give you the benefit of the doubt and stop criticizing your Freudian slip, Ryan Michael 84, I could address the concept that you're trying to convey, which is about Democrats being in office. If you are not a bot, Ryan Michael 84, then you are a human being who has not been paying attention to the landslide victories that Democrats are seeing in local offices throughout the country, even in blood red districts. I'm talking bloodier than that Kill Bill movie starring Uma Thurman. This indicates that the voters of the United States of America have grown tired with the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration. In other words, Ryan Michael 84, it is you who needs to get used to it as you say. I do not use that kind of rhetoric myself, however. I believe in inclusion. You actually won't have to get used to anything other than leaders who prioritize freedom, care for others, and an interest in solutions. But most importantly, being held accountable by a constituency who has learned a lot these last few years from watching people fall in line behind leaders no matter what they do. I'm slightly sorry for having fun at your expense over this Freudian slip you made, Ryan Michael 84. I won't pick on it anymore. There is no justification. Please continue to ignore the Trump administration. Day 329 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. Quality artists are canceling their appearances at the Kennedy Center after the leader of the Trump administration illegally pretended to rename it. These cancellations can be construed as being completely about politics, but what they are really about is artists who don't want their life's work associated with an a-hole who doesn't appreciate or understand the arts and, in fact, has contributed to defunding and suppressing artistic expression. As I have stated throughout this series, my overarching grievance with this dude is the dude, and subsequently the dudes and dudettes he has gathered around him who share his values or more specifically lack thereof. If there was a Democrat, independent, or some other flavor of politician who held complete contempt for art and artists and then slapped their name on the side of a building dedicated to the arts and expected artists to perform under that umbrella of inequity, I'd say the same. No performer with self-respect wants to be a dancing monkey for a menacing moron. Maybe Morrissey would do it. I fell in love with the man's music long ago, but I have been falling out of love with the man. Now we are hearing that whichever flunky has been inappropriately appointed to head up the soiled center, which now represents the leader of the Trump administration's latest attempt at filling his voided soul, is trying to sue artists that cancel their appearances. Again, this is a-hole and a-hole adjacent behavior. It is not political. It is about not wanting to be around and associated with a-holes. If a band was set to play at a club and discovered through the process that the talent buyer at the venue was a total POS, the band would find somewhere else to play. That is exactly what is happening here, and it will continue to happen until the Kennedy Center is restored in both appearance and artistic intent to a place where artists can feel safe and respected. I said above that it doesn't matter to me what party the narcissist in chief belongs to. I don't think John F. Kennedy was the best dude on the planet in the first place either, but I also don't think he would have needed to slap his name all over a building where it didn't belong. I trust he had a better understanding of artistic inspiration, and I have a feeling he would enjoy ignoring the Trump administration. Day 330 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. I don't typically enjoy watching an elderly man melt down like he's the Wicked Witch of the West, but I would be lying if I said I was not enjoying watching the leader of the Trump administration lose his goddamn mind. If anyone deserved to lose their goddamn mind, it is him, a blight on humanity who represents the worst of us. Today, he posted that the governor of the state of Colorado is a scumbag and that he would like other elected officials in the state to rot in hell. This is not surprising in its rhetoric, but it is surprising in that it is indicative of someone who is melting down. And when I say melting down, I don't mean a child throwing a tantrum because they couldn't get a cookie. I mean an 80-year-old president of the United States throwing a tantrum because they couldn't get a cookie. Metaphorically speaking, this is a cookie of acceptance, a cookie of adoration, a cookie of assimilation into a society that has always rejected him and will continue to reject him long after his skull is free of gray matter. You might say, but Josh, he has acceptance. He's the president of the United States, and tens of millions of people have voted for him. Well, I have news for you. For an empty, voided soul, no amount of perceived acceptance will ever create a character that anyone with love in their heart wants to associate with, and so he must use his lies, his manipulation, and his threats to get what he wants. Now look, I do not consider myself to be any kind of example of the heights of human achievement. The fact that I am enjoying watching this person completely fall apart indicates that, but I eventually will stop staring at this accident for my own sense of self-preservation. I recommend you do not stare too long either and continue to ignore the Trump administration. Day 331 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. A commenter on another platform pointed out that yesterday's video was not shot at Starbucks, and I replied, not Starbucks, Panera, which is an important distinction not only because I support my local Panera because the staff is so friendly, but because I am a member of the SIP Club and have taken advantage of various discounts and other strategic means to pay a pittance for coffee that is far, far, far below what it would cost to drink burnt dessert at Starbucks. Burnt dessert is what I call coffee from Starbucks. I call it burnt dessert. Frankly, anybody who thinks they are walking out of Starbucks with coffee when it is piled high with whipped cream and filled with hot fudge is as delusional as the leader of the Trump administration, who is the person responsible for the fact that I cannot go to Starbucks even if I wanted to. Now, you might say, Josh, the leader of the Trump administration is not responsible for whether or not you can go to Starbucks. Why would he matter when it comes to your income and your ability to use disposable funds to purchase burnt dessert? Well, the reason is because of his insane economic policies causing a downturn for people like myself who have built careers as self-employed entrepreneurs. And as a self-employed entrepreneur, myself and others like me rely on the discretionary income of clientele. For instance, in 2008, my business experienced an incredible downturn after the housing bubble burst, which then caused panic that exposed the multi-billion-dollar fraud of Bernie Madoff and bankrupted many organizations that funded other smaller organizations that funded even smaller organizations. And then it gets down to me and my NYC-based organization of about a dozen employees at the time. Oops. I had to completely downsize inside of a week when the economy crashed because of a bunch of billionaires like the leader of the Trump administration who just couldn't stop taking. I could almost have respect for a criminal who just takes a little and walks away, kind of like Kenny Rogers in his classic song, The Gambler. But unfortunately, these types of people have a dysfunction within them that keeps them from ever feeling like enough is enough. It is in their blood. And speaking of blood, I need to infuse mine with more inexpensive caffeine. It is my form of self medication before I return to ignoring the Trump administration. Day 332 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. I haven't heard anything from Maine Senator Susan Collins today, who is famously known for expressing concern anytime she is asked about events that any other person would be more than concerned about. If I were to hear from her today, I think she might say, "Hey, man, I don't have time to be concerned about everything." Of course, I am referring to the leader of the Trump administration's latest heinous act on the global stage, which is to unilaterally decide that he is going to install the leader of his choice in Venezuela and to initiate that process with bombing and kidnapping. Now, I am not interested in commenting further on the politics of this maneuver. I am more interested in commenting on the joke I've seen going around about the FIFA Peace Prize, which was made up to apply to the leader of the Trump administration's emotional boo-boo. To paraphrase the joke, it is out of character for a Peace Prize winner to be indiscriminately bombing a sovereign nation, regardless of the reputation of the leader of its administration. I think the irony of this is that because I judge the behavior of the leader of the Trump administration solely as a person I see as damaged, he is merely acting out of anger at not winning the Nobel Peace Prize, which it just so happens the duly elected leader of Venezuela, who has been kept from taking office by the now kidnapped dictator Maduro, did win. She went on to even dedicate the prize to the leader of the Trump administration in an attempt to win favor. But she unfortunately did not know that does not work. And today, the leader of the Trump administration said that he does not believe she should be allowed to take power either. What a surprise. To me, this invasion is simply a retaliation. It is as if to say, okay, so you're not going to glaze my false claims about ending wars? Let's flip the script. His only motivation ever is serving his emotional hole. He is more cuckoo than Jack Nicholson in Cuckoo's Nest. I don't see it as an attempt to seize oil, as so many have said. That will be the justification within the Republican Party. The justification to the public is that Venezuela is a national threat. The justification in reality is that the dude is the product of a lifetime of unchecked, encouraged, and enabled psychological and emotional disorder. I would hope that Susan Collins would be more than concerned. But what is her motivation? She's just out here doing what I'm doing, ignoring the Trump administration. Day 333 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. He is never going to stop. The operation in Venezuela is about the leader of the Trump administration's emotional boo-boo. I like to think of Yogi Bear's little sidekick named Boo Boo Bear when I say this. I don't know who Yogi would be in this case, maybe Putin. Anyway, it softens the reality, which is that emotional boo-boos that are never healed will always need to be tended to. And so, as reported by the Washington Post and speculated on by me days ago, the leader of the Trump administration is not backing the duly elected Venezuelan opposition leader to take power because she accepted the Nobel Peace Prize rather than giving it to Donald. Yes, on one level, this is about grabbing Venezuela's oil. On another, it is about removing a brutal dictator. On yet another, it could be about a delicious steak dinner. But no one brings up it being about a delicious steak dinner because steak dinner is just being substituted by me for anything that you would want to put in there because these are all secondary reasons. These reasons are just a piece of the game. The important part, and the reason the leader of the Trump administration is never going to stop, is why he sat down to play the game in the first place, and that reason does not have an end. Who would have thunk that a man born into an existence of opulence that only systematically served the development of his emotional void's ability to efficiently deliver misery to anyone and everyone he ever encountered on earth would not make for the best, most powerful person? Just look at the guy. Use your eyes, use your ears, use the senses that you would use at a delicious steak dinner. He does not know happiness. He does not know contentment. He does not know joy. He doesn't even like dogs. I'm only pointing this out because of the reasons that I have stated for hosting this series in the first place. Life is brief. Mindfulness, optimism, and hope are tools that we have at our disposal in order to enjoy its brevity while we can. He does not, and that is why we are unwilling pawns in his ceaseless retaliation. He will not stop, and so I will not stop ignoring the Trump administration.
Ooh, time for me to talk again. Hi, it's Josh Bloom. Were you expecting someone else? That reality about the leader of the Trump administration never having a pet is really something, huh? But when I think about it, I am sure the pets of the world would rather be stray, feral, and or full of rabies than have the leader of the Trump administration for a master. I am convinced he doesn't even remember the names of his own children without having to think about it. He still thinks Melania's name is Melanie. Thanks again for listening. Please leave a 5-star rating for the 1,461 Days of Ignoring with Josh Bloom podcast in your podcast app, and leave a comment saying that you like the show. If you feel like saying that the leader of the Trump administration is a dog and dogs don't have dogs for pets, that might be a funny and snarky comment to leave. I won't try to stop you. Please tell a politically curious friend about the show, and while you're at it, please follow me on all of my social media by going to superjews.com, that's superjews.com, where you will find the links you are looking for. Lastly, if you would like to throw some support to me and the show, please subscribe to my Substack, which is a platform where I post my writing and send it directly to your email inbox. Go to superjews.substack.com and just enter your email address. You will be pleased that you did. You can also buy me a coffee for a mere $3. You will earn my undying gratitude, or at least enough gratitude to last until the next time I ask you to buy me a coffee. Please do not forget what this show is for. We are living in trying times that are trying to take our time away from living. The goal with this show, beyond entertainment, is to reclaim that time, regain my mind, and focus on what is important. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. I am glad you are here every week with me. See you next time. Bye.